Welcome back, Sebastian here. So obviously yesterday the big news from the FIA was that they had approved Andretti's application to basically join Formula One as the 11th team on the grid. Of course, this is not a complete story. It's still really very much developing. And I think just through this whole process, I've been pretty cynical about the whole thing, which is why I haven't really been talking about it. But, you know, being approved by the FIA is a big deal. Basically half of the I guess, governing body of Formula One. So let's talk a little bit about the application. So there was basically 4 teams that were in this process. There was the team from Asia, Lucky Sons, I guess it was. There was High Tech, and then there was Carlin. And of course, I guess Andretti were the only team that were basically put forward by the FIA. And for Andretti, of course, this would be their first real shot at Formula One, and they would be joining with Cadillac, obviously a really big car manufacturer in the US. From the start, they would be using, the plan I guess is that they would be using Renault engines, but there's been some news the past couple of days that Cadillac would be open to being an engine supplier in the future, although at this point the earliest that would probably be is 2028, which is still 5 years away. And you know, if that does happen, if they do come with promises of being an engine supplier in the future, I do think that would change the calculus quite a bit. Of course, for now, the entry fee is officially $200 million, and it's basically an anti-dilution fee, basically the fee to come in just like with a expansion fee in National Hockey League. I don't think any of the other big 4 sports teams have had expansion recently, so I'm not sure what the equivalent would be, but basically, this $200 million has been a real sticking point with the other teams. Basically, in the time that since this number was agreed upon, a lot of the other teams have argued that the value of Formula One, the value of a Formula One team, has gone up dramatically due to inflation, due to popularity, and now they want something in the 600 million plus ballpark. And I think, you know, it's been very, very clear from the start of this whole process that the FOM and the teams have not really wanted an 11th team. And, you know, it makes sense. Why would you want 1/11 of prize money instead of 1/10? And obviously, the way that the prize money would be distributed would be a bit different, and it wouldn't be a 1/10. But, you know, the general picture is the same. You're not going to get the same amount of money if there's 11 teams than you would if there's only 10. And of course, I think, you know, back when we had our HRTs and our Virgins and our Marussias, only the top 10 teams got prize money. So if you finished lower than 10th, you were basically, especially in consecutive years, you were basically screwed. And that's something that the new rules with the prize money were trying to correct, which I do think is the correct approach. And, you know, there's been a very, very long history of, you know, conflict between FIA and what is now FOM. Of course, in the past, there was different governing bodies, basically when it was Bernie versus the drivers, Bernie versus the teams, and all sorts of other dramas there. So this kind of historic drama between FIA, Bernie, and whoever owns the commercial rights to Formula One at the time has always been there. And, you know, I think I'm not really sure how this ends. It's still, like I said, still a developing story. But, you know, I think at some point, I think we will get a final decision on this at some point soon. Another talking point that has been brought up many times has been the EU anti-monopoly laws, which basically says that this kind of practice here with basically the teams trying to increase the entry fee is not allowed because it's not competitive. It's basically anti-competition basically. And given that I believe that FIA, FOM, Formula One as a whole is a European Union company, again, I don't know the specifics on the legal details of this, that they would fall under EU laws. So if, for whatever reason, FOM hold this up, Andretti may have a leg to stand on legally with the EU. In terms of some kind of joining date, I don't think we really have one at this point. It would be 2025, at earliest probably 2026 or even 2027. I do think 2026 makes sense because that's when we'll have the new regulations, new engine regulations as well. And, you know, I think another thing from this is that, you know, Michael Andretti, who would be basically the team owner, the owner of the team for this Andretti team, has always been pretty consistent about how he'd like to have at least one American driver. And so, you know, I'm not really a big fan of that idea. I think that Formula One should be the 20 best drivers on merit. In this case, it would be 22 drivers. I know what they're going for, but to me, I don't really think it's in the spirit of Formula One, or it's in what the spirit of Formula One should be to have that approach. So I think my thoughts on the whole thing is, I do think that, you know, this will come to a pass at some point, an impasse at some point. I think we will get to a point where it will either lean one way or the other, either 11 teams with Andretti or 10 teams, things stay the same. At this point, I don't know which it'll lean to. I think if I had to choose, I would accept Andretti, just because I do think that we have so many talented drivers. I do think in terms of just talent, we have enough talented drivers around the planet and other series to support 11 teams. That being said, I do think that the teams won't go away without a fight, and that there's definitely going to be more to this story in the near future. As for whether or not it gets approved or not, I'm honestly not really sure. I remember basically that, you know, reading online, reading about this whole story, it definitely seems like there's a bone to pick between FOM and FIA, and like I said before, developing story, growing story, and I don't think it's one that will be solved anytime soon. So that's all for this video, just talking a little bit about Andretti, really the first time that I've talked about the whole Andretti situation on my channel. Just kind of an update on where things are. I expect I'm probably going to have to do more videos about this topic in the weeks and months to come. So that's all for today. Of course, Qatar Grand Prix coming up this weekend. And of course, my preview will be out for that in a couple days' time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.